Thank you all for joining this morning. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. The activity is slowing down. We have a great number of attendees. I am Michelle Economo-Uresti, the Executive Director of the Workforce Intelligence Network, which serves as the convener for the MAGMA Governing Board, which is comprised of automotive OEMs, manufacturing suppliers, and industry stakeholder groups. MAGMA is leading the recently awarded State of Michigan EV Jobs Academy employer-led collaborative. On behalf of the MAGMA Governing Board, I'd like to thank and welcome our panel of speakers and moderator on this topic of regional training initiatives and braided funding. This has been on the list of topics for advisory council meetings for over a year. And it couldn't be more perfect timing for this discussion, as so many new state and federal grants have been awarded to the region. Our goal is to bring more clarity to how these funds can be accessed and braided to support employers and job seekers with their career and talent development needs. This topic lends itself to more conversation on the growing list of regional training initiatives. And so for this session, we will not have a panel discussion, but we will take chat questions at the end of the session. So please enter questions to be discussed following the presentations. The WIN project manager assigned to support MAGMA activities is our very own Amanda Bauerschmidt. She's the moderator for the advisory council meeting. Amanda.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that great introduction. I am going to now introduce our next speaker, Deborah Baer. She serves as the Director of Regional Initiatives and Grant Compliance for the Workforce Intelligence Network for Southeast Michigan. Deborah comes to WIN following a career in post-secondary education by serving the past 3 years as Vice President of Instruction at Alpena Community College, where she was responsible for all aspects of Alpena's academic footprint. Prior to Alpena Community College, she spent over 12 years at Oakland Community College, first as the Director of Emergency Services Training and building the programming for the Combined Regional Emergency Services Training Center, CREST, and later as the Dean of Public Services Programs and Interim Dean of Engineering, Manufacturing, and Industrial Technologies. While at OCC, Deborah was the lead administrator responsible for the development of the Michigan Advanced Technician Training Program. During her 15 years in higher education, she has served on several of the Michigan Community Colleges committees, including the Chief Academic Officers, Occupational Deans Administrative Council, Data Evaluation Committee, Liberal Arts Deans, Michigan Center for Student Success Advisory Committee. She's also been serving as a post-secondary representative to the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Career and Technical Education, Committees on Career Readiness, Employer Engagement, and the Perkins V. Grant Accountability. Prior to her career in education, Deborah had a successful and rewarding 25-year career in law enforcement, retiring as a lieutenant from the City of Flint Police Department in 2005. We're so glad to have you here, Deb.
Thanks, Amanda. Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be able to share what WIN is doing right now with all of our grant initiatives supporting workforce development across Southeast Michigan and across the state. A little bit about WIN for those that aren't familiar. The Workforce Intelligence Network is a consortium of 10 community colleges and 7 Michigan Works agencies. Our footprint expanded this past year when we added Lansing Community College and Capital Area Michigan Works and welcomed Jackson College back. So we are literally covering the entire Southeast Michigan area at this time. Our goal, our mission is really threefold, and that is to support employer engagement and convening of employers for developing workforce initiatives. We also are very active in the research and data analysis area, and we are producing labor market reports for all 19 counties for the WIN region itself and the city of Detroit on a quarterly basis. We are also supplying that workforce data to our partners to help inform curriculum development and areas of focus in the labor market. And lastly, we are focused on workforce solutions for our employers. And so what I'm going to cover this morning are the current initiatives to support that workforce development. Our first grant, thank you, Amanda. Our first grant, Closing the Skills Gap. This is an apprenticeship-focused grant. All WIN partners, excluding our newest partners, Capital, Lansing, and Jackson, because this one's in its third year now, are involved. The grant holder or fiscal agent for this grant is Oakland Community College. The goal of this grant is to reach 3,200 participants with information about apprenticeship, ultimately resulting in supporting 720 new apprentices. So this grant will supply funding to employers to help assist with the related technical instruction needed for registered apprentices. Next, you see Health Careers Alliance. This is a priority of the WIN board, and it is currently supported through the WIN dues. That particular initiative, Health Careers Alliance, is getting a boost through our newest grant, which I'll tell you about in a minute. The focus of that is to bring together healthcare systems and employers, even in rural areas, to identify and grow the healthcare workforce. Next, we have MAGMA, which is supported by corporate dues and is partially funded within the One Workforce Industry Infinity Grant, as well as MIRA, which is now the EV Jobs Academy. The MAGMA project has been ongoing since 2009. It came to WIN in 2014 as a convener. Our H-1B One Workforce Industry Infinity Grant is a SEMCA-held grant for WIN. It is a $10 million grant focused on workforce development, specifically short-term training. So this is really the go-to grant for anything in manufacturing, IT. I guess there's really a wide range of occupational codes that are within this grant. It is designed to cover short-term training. It can be 1 day to 2 years. The training is for incumbent workers as well as those trying to get into employment. We encourage employers to take advantage of this grant when you are upskilling. We can utilize this grant to do training such as robotics, CDL, driver training. Again, anything that would get a job seeker into the job market or a current worker upskilled for promotional purposes. The MyLeap grant, Michigan Learning and Education Advancement Program, is the most flexible grant that WIN is managing at this time. The partners that are involved include DESC, SEMCA, Michigan, or Macomb St. Clair, Michigan Works, Michigan Works Southeast, Monroe Community College, and Jackson College. This is a grant that is often called a last dollar grant because it can be braided with several others. It supports short-term and long-term training, anything from 1 day to 2 years, and it must result in some type of a certificate or credential that would get the job seeker into a workplace or advanced within their current employment. The MyLeap grant is a great add-on, and you'll hear Callan Eschenburg talk in a little while about braiding and co-enrollment. This is a wonderful, flexible grant to help with things like tools needed for the job seeker, also support services such as transportation and childcare, other things that may be needed by the job seeker while they're in training so that they can successfully complete a program. Next is the Michigan Rural Enhanced Access to Careers in Healthcare, MyReach. This is a very limited grant. It's focused on our rural areas. So Genesee, Shiawassee, Thumb, Michigan Works, SEMCA, and Michigan Works Southeast are involved in this grant, focused on getting healthcare providers, workforce in things such as medical assisting, CNA, and it is also focusing on working through apprenticeship and career pathways in the healthcare fields. Our grant that MAGMA is a key player in, the lead actually, is the EV Jobs Academy, formerly known as MyRev, the Michigan Revolution for Electrification of Vehicles. The EV Jobs Academy is now involving all of our WIN partners, as well as several other stakeholders from across the state, including several universities. The MyRev grant is, or EV Jobs Academy grant, is focused on designing, developing, and planning for the electric vehicle jobs of the future. We are engaging employers in multiple collaboratives focused on identifying the jobs needs, both with the development of electric vehicle technology, the automobile industry transition to electric vehicles, as well as the overall infrastructure and energy needs of Michigan. This includes component parts such as batteries, semiconductor operations to develop chips and things like that. The EV Jobs Academy project currently has well over 100 stakeholders involved, nearly 30 partners that are leading the charges with the individual collaboratives. So you'll see much more to come with that grant. The Apprenticeship Building America grant, we just got word a few weeks ago that we have been awarded $5.82 million to support several of the initiatives that WIN is currently leading, if you will. The ABA grant was specifically written to help support all of the gap pieces to previous grants. In other words, there is funding within that grant to develop and support pre-apprenticeship programs for employers. We heard from several employers and several of our training providers that the need to get job seekers prepared for apprenticeships is a very big gap today. So this grant will help support and develop individual employer pre-apprenticeship programs, as well as expand current programs that are happening across the region. This grant will also help employers to develop new apprenticeships and expand registered apprenticeships they are currently doing. The National Science Foundation Regional Initiative Engine that we are currently in the process of working on the application for, along with the lead partner, Michigan Central, and the state of Michigan, is a project that Michelle is going to tell you more about later. But this is a $160 million 10-year grant for the area. So we would appreciate if everyone keep your fingers crossed as we look forward to that process and hopefully receiving that grant for the state. The Build Back Better Regional Challenge, GEM, Hopefully all of you have been watching that as closely as we have over the past several months. Our partners from the Detroit Regional Planning have been awarded $52 million. SEMCA is a partner in that, and we are looking at hopefully close to $2 million to support training reimbursement funding for the Electric Vehicle Jobs Academy and related programs for the automobile and mobility fields. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I know that's a lot to digest. This slide will be part of the recording when you receive it. And as always, we encourage anyone that has questions about our grant projects, how you may be a fit or a recipient of our grants. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and we would love to help you learn more.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and Deb and Amanda, before we flip this slide, I just wanted to point out for any MAGMA employers that are participating today that there are a lot of training reimbursement funds available through each one of these. Namely, the One Workforce Industry Infinity has 4.6 million of training reimbursement funds that can be accessed through your local Michigan Works agency. The dollars flow through the Michigan Works agencies. We haven't drawn down a lot of those funds yet, and it is first come, first serve, and that is focused on manufacturing sector, transportation, and IT. So it's pretty wide open for, the upskilling or, pre and post hires that you have for to support their training needs. As well as 720,000 in closing the skills gap for apprenticeship. And then, as Deb mentioned, there's 2 million that was included in the Detroit Regional Partnership application for Build Back Better Better Regional Challenge, which was an awesome award. DRP did such a great job in pulling together such a comprehensive strategy. And those challenges are challenging. So it was wonderful that those dollars were brought here to this region. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you so much for that great overview of all the exciting initiatives and grants WIN is currently working on. Before I introduce our next speaker, there was a quick question on whether those outside of WIN's regions can take advantage of any of these grants.
Yes, that's a great question. Many of these are statewide. Closing the skills gap is more regional. EV Jobs Academy is statewide. Industry Infinity does have the WIN footprint. Our federal program officer did provide approval in a conditions of award and expansion to the Lansing capital area. So our footprint is greater Southeast Michigan now to Lansing, covers 19 counties and approximately 63% of the labor force. My reach is statewide, but just for rural areas. Let's see.
Michelle, if
ahead.
I can add, if I can add, you guys, my LEAP, the state grants are projects statewide. We are a subrecipient for our region. So anyone outside of the 19 counties that WIN covers, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to your Michigan Works provider and see if they are a participant in my LEAP, as well as I know even GST, one of our partners, is involved in another my LEAP project. Also, the state apprenticeship expansion and youth apprenticeship, some of the things that Callan will talk about in a few minutes, are grants that do similar training reimbursement funding within other regions of the state. So the bottom line is, please reach out to your local Michigan Works office and see what is available for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now introduce our next speaker. Janine Ernie is a Regional Apprenticeship Administrator at WIN and a USDOL Apprenticeship Ambassador. In this role, Janine works with partners from across apprenticeship systems to grow apprenticeship opportunities in Southeast Michigan. Janine has over 20 years of experience in career development and apprenticeship and is passionate about connecting industry and individuals for these opportunities. As a regional apprenticeship administrator, Janine's work continues to support and expand initiatives created through the Advanced Michigan Center for Apprenticeship Innovation, AMCI grant, along with a $4 million Department of Labor American Apprenticeships Initiative, AAI grant, called Closing the Skills Gap that Deb just mentioned, which brings together community colleges, workforce partners, and industry to strengthen the regional apprenticeship system and expand opportunities for Michigan's talent. AAI spans 19 Michigan counties and aims to expand and enhance DOL registered apprenticeship. Janine recently retired from Oakland Community College as the college's Director of Apprenticeship and Technical Programs and has in-depth working knowledge of the world of registered apprenticeships. While at the college, she spent many years working directly with the Department of Labor's Office of Apprenticeship and has worked with a wide variety of industry partners, both large and small, union and non-union, traditional manufacturing, construction, and non-traditional like IT and medical, to create new apprenticeship programs. In addition, she regularly works with and advise both college and high school students and faculty while working closely with Oakland County Michigan Works to develop new programs and apprenticeships. Thank you again for being here, Janine. I think you're still on mute.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
As I said, thank you, Amanda, for the introduction. I'm here to talk about the apprenticeship ecosystem that we have created through our past grants and current grants where we're expanding it. We really have done a phenomenal job of creating what we call an ecosystem for our employers. So everything they need to know about apprenticeship is in one spot. We're able to support our employers to assist them with registration, getting their programs registered, and actually even continuing to manage it. But before I jump into that, I just am going to start with a real brief overview of what apprenticeship is. When we talk apprenticeship, we talk registered apprenticeship. Many companies have in-house training programs, but they're not registered. This is a federally registered apprenticeship with the Department of Labor. It's available in every state. The end result is a national credential that's portable throughout the states. It is very sustainable. It helps the employer sustain their workforce. Actually, there's been studies that show apprenticeship actually fosters loyalty, and apprentices are more likely than a regular apprentice to stay with the company. It's very flexible. When we create an apprenticeship program, it is directly related to exactly what the employer needs, their training needs. It's customized. And as Deb just talked about, registered apprenticeship is incredibly fundable at this point in the world we're living in now. Besides the things that WIN supports, besides our grants, there are multiple funding sources through Michigan Works for other ways to support your registered apprenticeship. Next slide, Amanda. So I'm stuck here. There we go. I'm going to talk about some of the tools we've developed over the course of the past 5-6 years that have just made apprenticeship easier for our employers. One of the first things we did was create what we called registered apprenticeship in a day. That we did that because it seemed like a lot of our employers were willing to embrace apprenticeship, but they just couldn't close the deal. Work got in the way. It was a bogged down communication system. So we thought, instead of having multiple meetings with the employer, that after an initial, this is what apprenticeship is, and here is what a training plan looks like individually with the employer, what we did was bring a group of employers into one big room, along with all the necessary partners on an apprenticeship. So instead of having an individual meeting with the local community college, and then another meeting with Michigan Works, then another meeting with the DOL, we brought all of those players together in one place and were able to close the deal on a number of apprenticeships. These are pictures from the first one. I think we had 12 employers at the first one, was in Traverse City. And these are pictures. Russ Davis is the gentleman in the suit and tie. He's the state director signing standards for the employer. We've done a number of these throughout the state, and then COVID hit. And they kind of disappeared for now, but we're talking about bringing them back and trying to work on it virtually, but it just didn't seem as productive virtually. So if anyone's interested in creating a rapid event, please just reach out. Next slide, please. And all of these tools that I'm going to be talking about was not first came this, then came that. We worked on a number of these tools at the same time, and probably one of the most impressive is our process guide. It's an actual manual of all things apprenticeship. There are a number of important resources and links. We talk about in the guide the CFR 2929. Those are the actual rules and regs for an apprenticeship program. CFR 2930 is the equal opportunity rules and regs. One of the other resources that we created while doing all this was miapprenticeship.org. That is WIN's website that hosts all of these tools, as well as a number of other things. It's set up for career seekers or employer seeking apprenticeship. There's also a link on there that's a direct link to my email where people just want to know about apprenticeship. How do I get into apprenticeship? I'm an employer. How do I start an apprenticeship? They all link directly to my desk. And I do one-on-one. Some of those calls end up with or emails, whatever, end up with just some information shared. Others end up with virtual meetings. So it's a really nice, our miapprenticeship.org is a really nice tool. And we also always reference the usdol.gov website that has everything apprenticeship that you want to know. So, and that's the national website. Inside this apprenticeship guide, I'm going to go back one second, Amanda, please. Inside this apprenticeship guide, it's divided into 4 basic sections. The first section are the basics. It gives you all the fundamental information about apprenticeship, the processes, how it works. The second part of this guide is how do you actually go about building the apprenticeship for the employer. The third section is the launch. How do you help an employer actually launch their program? And then, of course, once the apprenticeship program has been registered, you have to manage it. So everything you need to know about how to do a registered apprenticeship really can be found in this guide, which is on our website, or we have paper copies available as well. Thanks, Amanda. Next one now. Probably our most important tool that we've developed is what is called an apprenticeship intermediary. And that's a program where WIN has been certified nationally to become an intermediary and hold standards on behalf of our employers. So what happens is WIN is the conduit between the Department of Labor and the employer. We do everything for the employer. Next slide. Basically, as an intermediary, we act as a concierge or consultant service. It is a gift. I keep saying that. It is a gift to our employers, especially our non-union employers, because unions have a joint apprenticeship training committee that manages their apprenticeships for them for the most part. Non-union employers don't have that ability, so we act as that for them. We share basic information. We help them build an apprenticeship program. We certify it with the Department of Labor. And then when it's done, the best thing I think we do is manage it for them. Next slide. So basically, when we're talking about sharing apprenticeship information, as I said in the Rapids, we go in and talk general apprenticeship information, share some work processes that other employers may have created in their area. And we talk a little bit about funding and connect them with the funding agencies Michigan Works. Next, when we talk about building an apprenticeship, this is where we actually get down to business and work hand in hand with them to create what is called an Appendix A. We meet the employer where they're at. Some employers may have already started a process, or maybe they've got an unregistered program they want to register, or they have no clue and we start from scratch. We build their work process. We work with the community colleges to create their related technical instruction that's mandated, and we help them create a wage scale for their Appendix A. That's the meat and potatoes of a registered apprenticeship. Then, once it's built, next, the employer never has to talk directly to the Department of Labor. And right now in the state of Michigan, this is really an important part, because due to promotions and retirements, the State Department of Office of Apprenticeship is really running on a very skinny staff. They have 2 people left for the whole state. They are hiring, but right now we are able to kind of act as an arm of the Department of Labor, help them out and help our employer. So as I said, we liaise and we update. The employer never has to talk to the Department of Labor unless they want to. And it helps with the communication stream. Next, please. And the final piece, which is really the biggest gift, once your program's registered and certified, then the real work begins, because you have to manage your apprenticeship program. Everything has to be tracked and files need to be maintained. for DOL compliance. We have to track the apprentices' hours on the job, their skill level every time they reach a new competency. We have to track their wages, their EEO documents. So all of that is done by WIN for our employer. And I like to say that allows the employer to really do the work of apprenticeship and focus on the training of that apprentice. Next, please. A couple of other tools we have that we've just developed that helps with all of that management component is called our Apprentice Resource Tracker. It's a mobile-friendly website that the apprentice puts on their phone, the manager puts on their phone, and the apprentice is able to submit all of their documentation, where they're at in their hours, where they're at in, they can upload transcripts, they can upload their check stub, in all the things we need to see that they are progressing. And then we automatically get the reports. And that's when, if we notice someone's not progressing, then we intervene and find out what the problem is. But this is a great tool that has made my life, as I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and sometimes work process progress would be done on a cocktail napkin or in a little tiny notebook that the apprentice would carry around. So this is a great tool for them. And it's available right now to all of our intermediary partners, and we'll be expanding it soon to our region. Next, please. The other we have many other tools, but we're not going to go into detail on all of them. But recently, I have been awarded, which means WIN has been awarded an apprenticeship ambassador. We are one of 209 in the nation. And when the application came across for the ambassadorship, it really was not anything more than we weren't doing. So as you can see by the description, this is what WIN is all about anyway. This just takes us to the next level. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about National Apprenticeship Week that is coming up, opening day, I guess, that's important to Michiganders, November 14th to the 20th. Many of our partners in WIN are already doing events. It's important that we register them at apprenticeship.gov/NAW. If anyone needs any assistance with what an event looks like, it can be anything from a rapid session type thing, an information session, a signing session where someone signs a new apprentice on, or just highlighting a key employer and doing tours. There are a number of ways to do it. There's nothing you can't do. And this year we're really pushing National Apprenticeship Week because we came in second to Texas last year in the number of events, and we want to beat Texas. So I hope you all sign up for something. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janine, for the insight on the apprenticeship ecosystem of Southeast Michigan. I will now introduce our next speaker, Callan Eschenburg. Callan currently serves as an apprenticeship expansion specialist for the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity State Apprenticeship Expansion Grant, Michigan Registered Apprenticeship Innovation Network, MyRAIN. Previously, Callan served as project manager for the Expanding Community College Apprenticeships Initiative at the American Association of Community Colleges, a $20 million cooperative agreement with the U.S. Department of Labor to serve 16,000 registered apprenticeships over a 3-year period. This work included 66 community college partners in 31 states and territories involving 106 communities. as well as 5 national industry partners and multiple national subject matter expert partners. Callan also served as a project manager with Henry Ford College on the Advanced Michigan Center for Apprenticeship Innovation, a $4 million 5-year project expanding registered apprenticeships in the state of Michigan. The Multi-State Advanced Manufacturing Consortium, Department of Labor, CAAACCT grant, a $15 million project comprised of 13 colleges in 10 states. The Academic Affairs and Institutional Research and the Planning Departments at The Ohio State University, the Center for Urban Studies at Wayne State University, Information Systems and Facilities Departments at the College of Public Health at The Ohio State University, and the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Callan has a bachelor's degree in political science from The Ohio State University, as well as a master's of public administration from the John Glenn College of Public Affairs at The Ohio State University. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks for having me today and for that great introduction. That's a lot of acronyms, so appreciate bearing with me on my bio there. I think as Amanda mentioned before, if anyone has any questions as we go through, please type those in the chat. Happy to answer any questions at all. As Amanda also mentioned, I did have an opportunity to previously work on the AMCI initiative, so it's great to be back and see many familiar faces. So my presentation shouldn't be too in-depth or too detailed. Hopefully you'll have a chance to take away some good information and utilize a tool. But really it's a we think a great resource tool that goes along with the matrix or the chart that Deb Bayer showed earlier, showing all the funding initiatives, the overview of those and what the funds can be used for. So this takes kind of the next step from a state of Michigan perspective, all the funding opportunity out there, how those can work together, how those can be leveraged, or as we say, braided, and co-enroll those participants to maximize the benefits for the participants and make sure, of course, that we're staying compliant, not going to get in any trouble from the federal government, state government, any of that. So happy to be here, and I think we can move on to the next slide. So again, I'm with the LEO team, Labor and Economic Opportunity Department at State of Michigan. And this is a slide I'd like to start out with. Many folks, hopefully it's getting a little clearer as apprenticeship gets more into the mainstream day to day, but seems like there's a lot of funding opportunity out there and a lot of words that come up: state funding, federal funding, intermediaries, a lot of acronyms. Everything seems to include the word state, apprenticeship, and expansion in some variety of order, ASE, SAE. So part of this presentation, part of this concept of a braided funding matrix is to untangle some of that, try to streamline the understanding, make it a little bit more navigable, and help out in that way. So next slide, please. So braided funding and co-enrollment. This session, and we've done a few of these in the past, happy to do more. If anybody wants more detail, we're happy to do these with you individually as well. But really, again, this is a guide to assist braided funding and co-enrollment discussions. Want to make sure we all know that this is not in place of US DOL policy or procedures. This is just a guide that we came up with at the state for ourselves, and then thought it might be useful for others as well, but shouldn't supplant any of those official DOL policies. And then, of course, please always refer to your grant manager. So WIN, if you have funds through WIN or SUMCA, your fiduciary contact, and or your federal project officers at DOL. They'll be the final word, or the official on what you can and can't do. This is just a guide to help out. Next slide, please. So the purpose of braided funding, you may have heard, the words braided funding and co-enrollment. Typically, braided is what US DOL, from a federal perspective, likes to hear. They don't want to hear blended, which is blended funding is all the dollars go into a pot and they're not really kept separate or kept compliant in their own ways. So braiding those funds is how they imagine that or how they see that. The purpose is again to ensure that everyone is leveraging these complementary funding streams to ensure that the resources are not wasted. And then again, to maximize multiple funding streams appropriately to serve participants most effectively and efficiently. Next slide, please. So a few quick notes on what it's not. So counting and serving the same participant multiple times through the same initiative, that is not braided funding or co-enrollment, and also not allowable in pretty much all cases. It's also not counting serving the same participant through multiple organizations. So if multiple organizations are receiving funds, this isn't any way to count them under multiple organizations for the same grant. That's still unallowable. And also it's not really about maximizing covering as many initiatives as possible with one participant. It's about serving a participant with the funds that they need, maximizing the services that they're receiving to make sure that they're able to pursue their career or the registered apprenticeship in this case. Next slide. So a quick introduction, and it is right now the matrix is Excel based. We do have the OSMIS, the one-stop Michigan information system. If you're a Michigan Works partner, does incorporate this as well through the data input system. So there is an online version, but as of right now, what we'll be talking about is the Excel file version. So if you're familiar with Excel, it should be pretty basic, not too difficult to pick up, but it is kind of a large picture or matrix to start out with. So we'll break it down a little bit and then talk about it overall in the next few slides. So a few things to point out. There's a few different tabs that we start out with. And again, this was built particularly for our team at the state of Michigan for our funds. So it really applies mostly in the beginning to funds that go out to state of Michigan grantees. Doesn't mean it can't be used. Certainly you can use it for any of the federal or state funds, but it's just the tab progression is a little bit more based on if you're a state of Michigan grantee for the SAE 2020 or what we call My Rain, My Yarn initiatives. So tab 1 is just that. It's My Rain and My Yarn. Those are some initiatives that the state has from U.S. Department of Labor and many grantees. I think many folks on the call today are partners with us. Tab 2 takes that initial funding and adds in what we call Going Pro Apprenticeship, which is another 2019 USDOL grant that many of you are probably a part of. Tab 3 adds in everything from tab 2, but also adds in WIOA, and then Going Pro Talent Fund, or many folks might know it as the old STTF, Skilled Trades Training Fund. Tab 4 adds in H-1B grants, and then tab 5 actually adds in some additional funding. And we do need to update. There's a few new initiatives that are not on the matrix yet. As those come in, we know it's great, more and more funding's coming in, but it does add some complexity. So we're looking to update this in the next probably month or so as well. So the key here, as you can see in the little laptop screen, just a few notes. A green $ means allowable. A green box with a white $ means allowable if eligible and requirements are met. So that's kind of an important addition to the green. There is a kind of a grayed out $, and that's typically means that it is allowable, but you can only braid one. An empty cell means not allowable. And then there's quite a few acronyms, as I said, and definitions of what those mean. I won't go through those all. But typically, The best way to use this tool is first identify the grant that you're using. So you say you have a My Rain initiative funds. You identify that, identify the service you're providing. So we'll say OJL on the job learning. And then you can review the row, or what we refer to the scenario, for what other funding is potentially allowable. So next slide, please, Amanda. So this is a quick example. Again, you'll see the key off to the right. This is one of the most simple tabs that we have. Like I say, that My Rain and My Yarn funding specifically. So again, we're going to identify the award. We're going to say we have a My Rain award. We're using funds in this case to reimburse RTI. So we'll go to that second column under My Rain. And then you'll see that the only green dollars, those are what we're currently using, are scenarios 3 and 4. So if you move across to the right, you'll see you could also leverage My Yarn funding for, in scenario 3, OJL on the job learning, or scenario 4, supportive services. And again, the empty cells are areas that are not eligible. So if you're using My Rain funding for RTI, even though you can braid funds with My Yarn, with that initiative overall, it has to be a separate activity. So that's something that many folks may know, but always a good reminder, it has to be a different activity. So you could not reimburse, related technical instruction, RTI, through both initiatives. Next slide, please. So this is actually the entirety of tab 1. Again, it's the simplest. There's 9 scenarios. It's what we have as, again, the SAE 2020 initiative through the state of Michigan. And you can see here, this is really the basic layout is, again, you would look to see what funding you're currently utilizing, what activity you're using, and then what's available throughout the other initiatives. You can go to the next slide, please, Amanda. So this is the entire matrix, and that's why we start out a little small, because it gets pretty complex pretty quickly. And actually, this is only about half. So you can see on the far left, discretionary funds. We have our, again, Going Pro Apprenticeship, the My Rain, My Yarn initiatives. One that's missing from there is actually My Stairs. It's a new initiative, an equity and innovation grant that we have. We add in also WIOA and Going Pro Talent funds, the H-1B funds, U.S. Department of Education, MyLeap, some additional PIA. Folks may be familiar with the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeship, and then Industry Intermediary. Those are some funds out there as well. So it really follows the same process, though, even though it's quite a bit bigger. Say, we'll look at scenario 1. If you have a Going Pro Apprenticeship grant that actually, again, comes through state of Michigan to the Michigan Works agencies, say you're using that for on-the-job learning. Actually, scenarios 1 through 6 would cover the activity you're currently utilizing, and then you would go across to see what else is available as you pick up additional, braidable options. So say, again, scenario 1, you've got OJL for GPA. We'll say you add on RTI for My Yarn, the youth funding. It kind of limits in the H-1B funds what else you can utilize in those situations. You can now only use supportive services and only one. Did talk a little bit about those white dollar signs, the green with white dollar signs. Just want to note, in this case, again, the participant has to be eligible for those funds. But what is unique about the white dollar signs is they actually don't follow the same rules of that it has to be a different activity. Typically, and that's because they're either not USDOL funds in the case of Department of Education funds, or they're Michigan state funding that come through, such as WIOA or the Going Pro Talent Fund. So really those are, and I think Deb mentioned the idea of last dollar funding that can really be braided with almost anything and don't have the same restrictions of, again, not being eligible to pay for RTI if you're already paying for RTI. In those cases, those white dollar sign cells, those are grants that are eligible to do that. And Amanda, you can go to the next slide. It's just another, as I said, that first slide was half. This is the second half. So it's a total of 54 scenarios. Again, quite a bit. There's a lot of information. And I think I saw some notes in the chat about having specific meetings and conversations after. Absolutely happy to do that. I do want to note, when you're in the actual Excel file, one of the ways, if you're comfortable with Excel, if you're a user, where it says OJL, RTI, that row across the top, there are filters in there, so you can filter through. That's a much easier way to view this document. You can basically select exactly what you're using currently, and it limits out, filters out all of the noise per se. We also suggest, when you go to our website, that'll be the next slide here I'll talk about, but when you go to our website and download this, it comes in, it downloads as an Excel file. And of course, please check back, going forward for any updates. We will update that. But once it's downloaded on your machine, feel free to, I would say, delete the columns that are not applicable. So if you don't have any H-1B funds, if you won't be using any of those, just delete all of that information, and that should make it quite simpler as well. So feel free to customize this for your needs. It won't impact anything on our website, but just feel free to come back and re-download to get any updates as well. Next slide is actually, thank you. This is where to find the matrix. So you'll want to go to our website, www.michigan.gov/apprenticeship. A lot of great resources there as well. And you'll actually click our resource tab. Quite a bit of other information there. So a great website to check out. But that red arrow points to the Michigan RAP, or Registered Apprenticeship Program, braided funding and co-enrollment matrix. You'll click that button. It will initiate a download of an Excel file. So you'll need to go to your downloads, or usually it pops up in the bottom of your screen. And yeah, again, that'll be downloaded. You can save that, do whatever you'd like, but just make sure to come back to the online resource. If there's any updates, make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. And I believe, Amanda, the next slide is my information. I'm happy to, as I said, reach out to me. Our team, happy to have conversations with anyone about how to use that, or help you, customize that tool, speak through any opportunities or potential braided funding situations, scenarios. Happy to do that. But also, make sure that you're also talking with your project officer or grant manager. We don't want to get in the way, step on any toes there as well. But thanks so much, and happy to answer any other questions if there are any.
Thank you, Callan, for that great information and introduction to the matrix. So before I introduce our next speaker, there was a question in the chat that I believe Janine would probably be able to answer best. So that was, do you see a shift in employers in specific industry sectors moving toward competency-based apprenticeship?
I have to say yes. In general, all sectors, especially the non-traditional, are going towards competency-based. I think even many of the traditional apprenticeship, manufacturing, building trades, are seeing the value in defining specific competencies instead of just a block of time to do the task. So yeah, I think competency-based apprenticeship is growing. There was one thing Callan was going to talk about, just very briefly, another apprenticeship related thing, a pre-apprenticeship related thing that the state is working on that's kind of exciting. It's called the MARC, the Michigan Apprentice. I'll let Callan talk acronyms, but we just wanted to give you that a heads up that that's on its way. So go ahead, Callan.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for the reminder, Janine. Yep, so the MARC, the Michigan Apprenticeship Readiness Certificate, MARC, and it's an exciting, I think, kind of innovation in the pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship readiness area. If folks are familiar, there is we call it 10 TEN, Training and Employment Notice, all the way from 2013, that talks about what is a quality pre-apprenticeship. But really, other than that, there's no formalized apprenticeship readiness or pre-apprenticeship system like there is registered apprenticeship. So as part of this, our grant opportunity or grant deliverables, we took that opportunity to add in this certificate as a way to try and standardize, formalize, really validate quality pre-apprenticeships in Michigan. It's a two-tiered system, and there will be some more information. We actually have an advisory board at the state that is finalizing some of these components, so we will have a policy that gets rolled out. But really, it's a two-tiered certificate process. The first is at an industry sector level. It's at an industry level, familiarizing certificate holders with the overall industry, basically preparing them. It would show that someone who holds that certificate is ready to enter an apprenticeship program in that industry sector. The level 2 is a little bit more in-depth, and that's the occupational side. It's actually not only are you, as a certificate holder, prepared to enter a registered apprenticeship in that industry, say the energy or mobility sector, but you're actually prepared for some occupationally specific tasks and skills. And one of the components of this is at a level 2 certificate level, it's actually in the standards of apprenticeship for a registered apprenticeship program. So it'll actually be written in, and that individual who holds the certificate will basically get credit for prior learning, or they'll be achieving some of the skills, competencies, and related technical instruction of the actual apprenticeship program prior to being in that. So for an apprentice, it actually will cut down the time that it takes to complete their program. And then for the employer, if we have any employers on the call today, hopefully that's exciting that you'll actually be getting someone entering your program that's completed a portion of that program. So it'll cut down the time and the cost of training that person through your program. So some exciting news, and there'll be some more information. Sorry, we don't have as much to share today, but definitely soon to come.
Thank you. I will now introduce, our next speaker, our fearless leader, Michelle Eschenburg. She is the Executive Director for the Workforce Intelligence Network for Southeast Michigan. Michelle comes to WIN with an extensive leadership background in developing training programs in workforce development. At the nonprofit trade association formed by the Automotive OEMs, Automotive Industry Action Group, AIAG, she facilitated over a dozen quality management system committees of industry subject matter experts to develop industry guidelines, training programs, and white papers to support the implementation upon the release of the QS 9000 and TS 16949 automotive quality system standards. Michelle also worked as vice president of a business systems training and consulting firm where she created and established Tier 1 corporate universities for supply chain initiatives. He served 2 four-year terms as the immediate past West Bloomfield Township supervisor by essentially fulfilling the role of a full-time mayor and city manager. While in this position, she achieved the East Cities Awards by streamlining the building permit process, received the JCC President's Club Award for collaborating to develop a community-wide job fair and effectuated a downtown boulevard roadway improvement project, market study, and town center ordinance amendment that transformed the community gateway to include the first hotel in the township, and new development and facade upgrades throughout the business corridors. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Amanda. We're going to depart a little bit from the agenda since we do have a guest, Sarah Gregory, with us today, who really earned that new $52 million Build Back Better Regional Challenge Award. It's one of the largest grants that has come to the state of Michigan. She has limited time, so I'm gonna just throw it to her before I begin my presentation so that she can share updates about what is occurring with GEM and how to get involved, and then her participation in the new NSF Regional Innovation Engine funding opportunity that I am discussing next. Sarah?
Thanks, Michelle. So, yeah, and thanks everyone on this call. If you were a part of that application or supported it, I know many of you did, and we really appreciate that. It wouldn't have been possible without the support of all of our partners. So the $52 million project is quite large. In terms of just scope. So there are 6 total projects that are part of the Total GEM initiative. One that is focused on centrally coordinating that initiative, one on site readiness, one on proving and testing. There's one for startup and growing communities or businesses. And then there's also one for legacy and transition businesses as well. I think I got them all. And then talent, of course. So the talent portion is actually the largest portion of the $52 million. It's about $16.5 million. SEMCA is the fiduciary fiscal agent and will be the lead for the talent work. And there are 3 kind of main areas related to talent as part of GEM. So those are kind of a business-facing network that does some consulting and assessment around workforce needs, and then has dollars to support businesses in accessing services that may assist them. One that's talent facing, so that is so those are dollars that are focused on training, and that's the money that was mentioned a little bit earlier in this call. With the matrix that Deb was going over, there are some dollars that are specifically meant for training in advanced mobility, and so it makes sense to align those training dollars with trainings that are already being vetted and approved and proven as being in demand by employers through the EV Jobs Academy. So there's those dollars, and then there's also kind of a network alignment piece. We didn't think that it made sense for DRP to do additional talent convening or additional employer convening or workforce convenings. A lot of that is already happening, particularly through the chamber and through WIN, through the EV Jobs Academy again, as well as the work that Mich Auto and the chamber are doing with Detroit Drives Degrees and the Community College Collaborative. So all of that work is kind of being supported under a network alignment piece. And then there are also specific projects that are related to talent that are going to different subrecipients like Global Detroit, Upwardly Global, the Michigan Works agencies are all receiving some funding, Detroit Future City, Ann Arbor Spark. So there are some specific projects that are related to talent as well that are outside of those 3 large buckets that I mentioned. So I know that's a lot of information. I think what's important is what's next and how to get involved. And to be honest, I don't have a ton of those answers yet, and I wish that I did. But so the EDA is we're in that period of, we know that we have the award. We're waiting on basically the paperwork to come through so that we can do conditions of award for our the SEMCA talent portion of the grant, as well as all the other co-recipients. We had a kickoff meeting with them recently, and there will be several other different levels of kickoff meetings. So one is with the co-recipients for all of those 6 projects, of which SEMCA is one. Each project has a lead. Those people will be convened within the next month or 2. And then also all of the subrecipients who are, have direct projects under these grants as well. And then there will be kind of like a larger community kickoff to which, many people will be involved. And at that point, we'll hopefully be able to answer questions on how specific projects are moving forward and how to get specifically engaged with the projects that make sense for your organization. Again, we're not there yet, but we hope to be soon. And in the meantime, we're also trying to make sure that we're aligning this funding now that it's a real thing. We're trying to make sure that it's being aligned with projects that are already happening. Again, there are some flexible pools of funding, and it's not meant to duplicate any work. It's really meant to support our whole theme throughout the grant was align, connect, and grow. And so we really wanted to make sure that those are the things that we're doing. We're growing things that work. We're scaling up initiatives that are doing well. We're supporting and connecting between initiatives. So if if your organization has alignment with any of the pieces that I mentioned, and I know that was really quick, but feel welcome to reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the chat, and I can help to direct that conversation as to where it makes sense to plug in when we get to those points with the different projects. So, Michelle, I hope that was helpful. And we're also, we're going to be aligning. Part of my alignment discussion there was that I was going to say that we're also trying to align all of the Build Back Better funding with this NSF Regional Innovation Funding proposal as well, to make sure, again, that we're not duplicating efforts with another very large grant that could come through, but rather creating things that are complementary. So again, I'll stop there, but Michelle, if you have any other specific questions that I didn't cover, definitely let me know.
Oh, thank you. You did such a fine job, and congratulations again on this award, Sarah. I know that it was a tremendous amount of work, and it will greatly support all of the initiatives that, we discussed earlier, and of course, support, this new funding opportunity, as well as Sarah mentioned, the National Science Foundation Regional Innovation Engine work. DRP will be a core partner in that effort. Next slide, please. So I just want to build upon what Sarah mentioned. I think what makes us very successful in the region is the collaboration through the workforce system between the Michigan Works agencies, the community college partners, all of the stakeholder partners, and of course our employers. And also being able to leverage and align a lot of our grant initiatives has really been successful at the federal level in earning these federal awards. MAGMA has been a core piece of the Industry Infinity Grant, which was one of only 3 $10 million awards in the nation. Also the Apprenticeship Building America grant, only one of 9 $6 million awards in the nation that we just received a few weeks ago on bringing the Federal Advanced Manufacturing Education, or a FAME chapter, to Michigan. This grant is really going to catalyze that whole effort that MAGMA has looked at for years. It's these unique strategies that are brought to us through our employer partners, stakeholder partners, all of you that are viewing this MAGMA Advisory Council meeting right now, that we weave together in these federal grant funding opportunities. We build on our successes in the past, add new tools, and grow. And that really has been a successful way to bring in new awards to the region, new funding to the region. So that being said, the NSF broad agency announcement, in short, is really the larger picture. We have the EV Jobs Academy strategy that involves over 120 stakeholder partners. We have all things mobility under one employer-led collaborative now. We have built some big bridges throughout the region. It is awesome. So it really set us up with having the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and LEO funding through the state of Michigan, both economic development, workforce development at the table with this comprehensive EV strategy. That, we had all those pieces together at the same time that this NSF grant opportunity came down. It's a $160 million opportunity. It's a long shot. There's only going to be 5 awards in the nation, but it focuses, a successful innovation engine focuses on youth-inspired research activities, entrepreneurial activities, and workforce development, economic development. All those pieces have to work together. So when we submitted the EV Jobs Academy concept outline, that was approved, but also Michigan Central was approved. And I reached out to my predecessor, Lisa Katz, because she's really at William Davidson Foundation, focused on entrepreneurship activities and kind of that household expert, right? So reached out to her. She said Michigan Central had a Michigan Mobility Concept Outline that was approved. So she brought our entities together. We established a special MAGMA Governing Board advisory meeting on August 18, and the governing board was supportive of building the alliance with Michigan Central and partnering on a full proposal, which will be due on January 31 of 2023. Next slide, please. So Michigan Central will take the lead, and, in and of itself, the partnership with Michigan Central and their partners, as well as all of the EV Jobs Academy partners, will be a success. I'm really excited that our MAGMA employers, stakeholder partners will be working over the next 6 months and developing out the proposal strategy with the Michigan Central team. It's just, I think, a positive net gain just to be at the table and really work together with Michigan Central partners as well as all of the workforce partners. As I mentioned, it's a $160 million opportunity with a 10-year period of performance. I mentioned the youth-inspired research. This activity requires a project director and CEO, and that will be the role of Michigan Central. Core partners are really, our MAGMA and EV Jobs Academy WIN. The state of Michigan has already been identified as a core partner. Detroit Regional Partnership will also be a core partner. There's a leadership team and more that is identified within this broad agency announcement or request for proposal, if you will. It's very, comprehensive set of requirements that go into your proposal. You have to have all of your roles identified within the full proposal. Next slide, please. Okay, so if I've basically boiled down our concept outlines and put them side by side. So you'll see the mobility engine that was proposed by Michigan Central is really focused on connecting innovators, solution seekers, and transformative research in mobility. The Michigan Mobility, Michigan Central outline was focused on 10 counties. We know with the EV Jobs Academy supported with the $5 million employer-led collaborative grant that's focused on over 100 partners scaling EV mobility curriculum, whether it's existing or new, over the next 5 years to all of MODAC's 32 institutions for higher education. And we have a lot of existing curriculum, as you all know, even training providers with recognized curriculum from Europe. We're scaling statewide. And then, of course, we have the comprehensive workforce strategy that even includes a smart cities, low emissions fleet collaborative, as it's on the same 5-year timeline as the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, to really be able to, use that public sector to convert their car fleets to low emissions, increase production demand, new worker hires and training for all of the scaled training that we'll be delivering on the Michigan Community College Association EPIC platform, educational programs in collaboration. And as you all know, we have October 6th, Epic Symposium with college presidents and faculty to gain their support in using that turnkey online learning solution to really scale high demand and critical EV mobility certification training programs. And I just mentioned a lot of the work that is going on in the 8 working collaboratives, academy, and project teams in the Comprehensive EV Jobs Academy strategy work that is currently underway. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Michigan Mobility Engine concept outline is focused on the economic development, entrepreneurial, and use-inspired research activities. Some of the elements that I pulled out of their concept outline is to implement and scale transportation innovation zones to expedite safe testing and deployment of technologies, mobility-focused research into the market through startups and existing businesses. A key partner is New Lab, which really is focused on programmatic fiscal infrastructure to curate use-inspired research and accelerate the translation of research through pilot and demonstration scale projects designed to advance commercialization. So you can see they really offer a lot of assets and strengths and bring a lot of value that is not necessarily being addressed in the EV Jobs Academy. So it's a perfect partnership and alignment. There are a number of leveraged resources that Michigan Central brings to the table, over 250 million of leveraged resources, and a lot of foundations are at the table to really support the development of this proposal strategy. Next slide, please. Okay, so just going to give you a snapshot of the EV Jobs Academy and all of those working collaboratives under the MAGMA Full Collaborative. I think many of you have already seen this slide probably several times, but the point is we have the Michigan Mobility Talent Collaborative with the D3C3 initiative and Machado at the table with MAGMA, the Smart Cities Collaborative led by SEMCOG to really transition, apply for those 500 million of competitive-based funding for government fleet conversion in bill and really help municipalities understand and take advantage of a lot of resources to convert their car fleets. And then the Defense Outdoor Recreation Field Collaborative, led by the National Advanced Mobility Consortium in Ann Arbor, NAMC, they represent 500 defense sector employers. They're already surveying. A lot of the survey work that's going on here in EVJA will be useful in the development of the NSF Regional Innovation Engine proposal. Apprenticeship expansions led by AFL-CIO Workforce Development Institute. I mentioned in detail the MyRev Academy with MODAC, MCCA, and just a very long list of partners you'll see on the next slide. And our research team is stacked. We have the Center for Automotive Research, Upjohn Institute, that did a really awesome research project team presentation. We recorded that session, and it is phenomenal on all of the energy sources, resources, labor market demand information in EV mobility. We're going to be looking at the car presentation findings, Upjohn Institute findings, the state LEO and state MEDC through Boston Consulting Group have conducted surveys. We're going to try to look and synthesize all of the data pieces and then affirm the data to be able to drive forward that EV mobility workforce strategy. Really, it's drilling down into the high demand critical occupational skills needs that we need to scale. And then outdoor or outreach and recruitment project team is led by Justin Aligo at Macomb, St. Clair, Michigan Works, and the Michigan Works agencies are a great support, as well as Deb Taylor on Wayne Can through SEMCA. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you could see there are a great number of partners. You can't see them very clearly. You just see that there are a lot of partners in EV Jobs Academy. And really, this EV Jobs Academy funding was just to support the collaboration. But the objective was really to leverage this whole strategy and the partners at the table to apply for other federal funding for more execution delivery funding. So, and then NSF came out, and it really is a perfect federal funding opportunity for, sustaining the efforts in a 10-year period of performance. Next slide, please. Okay, partner expansion. So we know that we have a lot of the partners at the table, WIN and MAGMA board members, EV Jobs Academy stakeholder partners, Michigan Central's at the table with New Lab. Really, I brought the MMTC Conex Manufacturer Supply Chain Management System to a prior MAGMA governing board meeting. And I think that is an asset that came to Michigan this year that needs to be leveraged. It is a game changer for Michigan. It connects manufacturing and education sectors because it has a workforce development component. So once manufacturers are in that supply chain management system that was developed by NAM over a 10-year period, National Association Manufacturers, it is focused on supplier technical capability. It's an awesome system. The workforce development component to that Conex Manufacturers Marketplace supply chain management system allows for broadcasting new training cohorts to the manufacturers that are entered into the system. And as you probably remember from the MAGMA governing board member, for those MAGMA governing board members on this call, MMTC talked about incentives to get registered by a certain period of time to have free access forever. So they really drove a lot of the activity. I don't have the current number, and we'll need that for the NSF application, the current number of manufacturers in that supply chain system. So that is one thing, and my brain will make sure to include while we're in this proposal development phase. And then, of course, DRP, we're going to align with that $52 million award. It always helps in the eyes of the feds if you're leveraging some of those programs that are currently underway. Mudic seems like the perfect fit for this, and Sharon Miller has a lot of good successes utilizing TPM for sustainable talent pipeline management. So they're another partner that I talked to at the recent Michigan Works conference to involve in this particular grant, and Michigan Manufacturers Association. And there's others, if there's anybody on this meeting that would like to recommend other, important stakeholder partners in consideration of the new grant that could really be an asset, certainly feel welcome to reach out. Next slide, please. So I mentioned member composition. There will be a project director, CEO, core partners such as WIN, SEMCA, and MAGMA, and then a governing board and an advisory board is also contained in that BAA. So those will be established. So if there are individuals on this call that really want to take a really active role, certainly we'll be developing all of these things in the full proposal, be identifying individuals to serve in the governing board and an advisory board. Next slide, please. Okay, so the $160 million is broken out into 5 phases. The first 2 years, there's a cap of $15 million for development and ramp-up activities. And then in years, in the phase 3 emergent, in their specific activities that need to be tied into each one of these phases, it's a cap of 15 million per year for 3 to 5 years. And then in the growth phase, that's where big dollars come in of 20 million a year for years 6 through 10. You really have to be successful with hitting the goals and objectives in the visioning work for each phase in order to progress to the next phase. So there's no guarantee, even if you're awarded, you're going to make it through the 10 years of funding unless, all of the partners involved are really executing the plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so proposal development timeline deadlines. There's a meeting series starting up on September 26th for engine collaborators to meet and develop goals, gaps, priorities. November 7th is to really our deadline to finish engine collaborator meetings. December 10 will be where we finalize the budget. There's a letter of inquiry that's due on December 15 for the final proposal to be submitted on January 26th. So that's the timeline. Now, if you'll remember, the NSF established essentially a matchmaking portal for all the type 1, type 2 concept outlines that were approved and encouraged collaboration participation. Since we were able to really effectively collaborate with our type 2 proposal and Michigan Central's type 2 proposal, we're already, meeting some of the objectives that the feds were looking for. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so it's open for questions, and I haven't been checking the chat. As I mentioned earlier, we don't have a panel discussion because today we really wanted to spend the majority of the time talking about all of the regional training initiatives that are underway, and then, of course, providing information as it relates to the training reimbursement funds, braided funding, and hopefully this discussion has helped many of you understand how that there are a lot of training reimbursement funds available that can be braided with a lot of the state funding that Callan spoke about. And again, most of these initiatives flow through the Michigan Works agencies. So please get to know your business system representatives at the Michigan Works agencies or those apprenticeship coordinators at the Michigan Works agencies. And they understand this stuff. They really understand the training funds that are available, how that can be braided with other sources of funding to support employer needs and job seeker needs. So we'll break for questions. Are there any questions out there?
Yeah, we just received a question asking if they can get support during the proposal phase.
Support through the proposal phase?
Mm-hmm.
Well, through the NSF Regional Innovation Engine proposal phase, yes, we're here to connect with in order to, I'm working directly with the Michigan Central grant writer, and certainly, we want to hear, you want to develop out our strategies with the expertise from everybody that's participating in this meeting. So really, it's going to be, a stronger application if we have a lot of involvement from across the industry. So please, please get involved. We're here to support, you and any ideas that you have to really integrate some of those concepts, new tools, new resources, new strategies into a very robust proposal that's really going to carry the day. The only way these federal applications are successful is if you can weave together, a really good story You know, a lot of it has begun for a lot of our grants, really, with the MAGMA employer-led collaborative. We manage a lot of employer-led collaboratives, and that's valuable. That's very valuable. Everybody that participates in EV Jobs Academy understands the value of being at the table with the employers, our Michigan Works agencies, our community colleges, and private training providers that are involved in those meetings can hear directly what are the needs from industry, and then develop their curriculum and programs accordingly and meet job seeker needs. So really, the beginning is the employer-led collaborative, and that's the piece we've already put together, but we need to build upon it. So if there are other assets, tools, resources available out there that are focused on EV mobility, it will be perfect to include. You know, we'll take a look at it for the NSF application. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and a follow-up to that was, who would be the best contact to connect with after the meeting to discuss this further?
Yeah, contact me. I largely do a lot of the grant writing activities on behalf of Win Partners. You know, when things come down, my Win board circles the wagons on me. But really, we can have other participation even in the grant meeting series that Michigan Central has set up. So yeah, please reach out to me if you want to become involved. And you know, this one's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. You know, the EV Jobs Academy strategy came together real well, and it came together only because of a lot of one-on-one meetings with all of the 100 partners during the grant writing process. And that's how we kind of married the defense sector with outdoor recreation vehicles through UP Michigan Works and Michigan Tech University. Interesting marriage that turned out to be a really good alignment with defense ground vehicles and outdoor rec vehicles. And yeah, I'm hearing that it was good. So really, we can only develop these proposals with a lot of input from across the industry. And it's wonderful that a lot of you take the time out and really reach out to offer up a lot of ideas. We don't know everything that's out there, and I know you're all working on fascinating new and developing new programs all the time. So feel welcome to reach out and get involved. My contact information is at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, would love to have any input from anyone that wants to take a leadership role or offer some strategy and new input on the concept development. We
have no other questions at this time.
Okay.
So speak now or forever hold your peace, but if not, we'll give you a little time back on your Friday morning. We thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.